Emilia and I have an example where I was under the impression I was taking the pets out more than her, and then we calculated the data. You might not have the data. We actually tracked it, and she was right. She was 60% of the time, and I thought it was the opposite. So I was the one delusional in that instance.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times each partner is telling themselves a story that's not rooted in objective truth.
Women are more prone to be able to develop this skill faster, but that doesn't mean that men can't, which is scanning the environment and knowing when things are off and doing so, picking up on the anomaly very quickly. Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. Today we have episode 135. What does equal partnership mean to you? Yes, Emilia is super pumped. If you saw her on YouTube, she was practically jumping out of her seat right there. So I will narrate for you, for those of you who are not on YouTube.
A little wiggle.
She's wiggling.
A little happy wiggle.
Happy wiggle. So before we jump into this episode, as always, we want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show and so many others. Personal growth, personal development, self-improvement, mental health, all of the amazing things into the world. So if anyone out there wants to grow, scale, and monetize a podcast, reach out to my business partner, Kevin. Reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with him. As always, my love, ladies first. What is your intention for today's episode?
My intention is to have a dialogue, a quick hot step dialogue around what does equal partnership mean to our listeners. Have them think about this maybe for the first time, hopefully not. And by the end of this episode, get the dialogue or the ball rolling in their head around this question and really have that be brought up in some degree or another in their relationship, if they're in a relationship, and if they're not, they're a conscious single, to have their radars primed a little bit more than maybe before jumping in this episode.
Okay, so I coach a married couple, actually outside of relationship talks coaching. I do business coaching.
How dare you?
Nice. I know how well this episode's going to go. This is good. How dare I? So I have clients outside of you and I's work, sweetheart. And so I do business coaching. And I'm coaching a male and a female in a married relationship, and they're both business partners, and they own real estate. They own a lot of real estate. They're very proud of them. They have tons of tenants, all that kind of stuff. But I was talking to the female, and so I was coaching the male for months and months and months. The male went back to work. Now I'm coaching the female biweekly in tandem with the male biweekly. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Great couple,
Great
2
dynamic.
kids, wonderful. So shout out to either of you if you're watching. You know who you are. I will keep you anonymous. All right, so I was on with the female, and she was really vulnerable about this. I was really appreciative of this, and I said something about you're not a business owner or something like that. She's like, no. Whoa. I am a business owner, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to unintentionally offend you. She said, no, we're good. I think I'm insecure because I feel like I identify as a business owner, but I kind of don't. It's that whole thing. And later on, she shared that feedback with me. She wasn't upset or anything like
sweet.
that. She was very sweet about it. Huge fan of this person. But anyways, so she reached out with a link to something called Fair Play. And the reason she was insecure about not being seen as a business owner is because a lot of times, and you've talked to me about this, sweetheart, you and I own a business together. And a lot of people might look to me as the male as the primary business owner and you as the secondary business owner just because of the male versus female consciousness or enculturation or misogyny or sexism, all that kind of stuff.
All that happy jazz.
So there's a woman named Eve Rodsky. Don't quote me on that because I just looked this up a second ago. Emilia and I were watching a documentary last night that's based on a book called Fair Play.
I got this text from Alan the other day that, honey, I think we would love this documentary. And I immediately, when I saw it, I was like, okay, let's go. Let's go. This is going to be great. Whoever suggested this, I want to talk to her.
And so I will tell you off air.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the documentary is essentially about these married couples who have children and who run the household. I have another client who I'll keep anonymous, and I asked him what his wife does for work, just because I'm trying to get to know him, his family. And he said she's the CEO of the household. And I thought that was really, really cool.
Good for him.
Yeah, and they seem to have a really good thing going. They have 2 kids. It's a whole thing. But anyways, so for the people out there, stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, anyone in an intimate relationship where they feel like there might be unfair gender roles and or just unfair roles in general for the potential homosexual couples out there as well. At the end of the day, Emilia and I, when she first got with me, she said, I really aspire to have a relationship where there's equal responsibility. I don't want to be a housewife who stays at home while will not. Okay, so take it easy. We're here doing an episode on it, and I suggest the documentary, so I'm kidding. But ultimately, Emilia and I are constantly divvying up, and we have a divide and conquer mentality, yes, because that's powerful. And the idea underneath that is we don't want to worry about everything. We want to know, okay, what is Emilia primary responsible for, and what am I primary responsible for? So we have something called a DRI, and I do this in business too. I'll let you talk in a second, babe, I promise. All right, so DRI stands for directly responsible individual. So for me, I am the directly responsible individual for certain things, and then the other partner is a support player. And so if you're out there watching or listening to this, think about what you are the DRI for, because most of this is unconscious.
Can you give an example?
In the documentary, there was a married couple that was talking about how they had the female quit work to stay at home with the kids. There was 3 children, and the male was working 80 hours a week. And when the male got home late at night, she would need him to be present and on to take care of the kids so that she could have any time whatsoever to herself. And he felt like that was unfair. It was a whole thing. And I think that this is something that a lot of people go through. And shout out back to the client originally who suggested this. She said, there's something called invisible work.
The word is cognitive labor that came out of the documentary that I resonate so deeply with as a woman, that invisible work. It's like, just think about the open loops that these mostly women have to try to make sure that the household and the business and the love and the partnership and the pee poop feeding schedules and the pee poop feeding schedules for the humans, right? Like all of that, that's cognitive labor, invisible work.
And so that's why what we want to bring you of value in the Conscious Couples podcast right here today. Conscious couples, meaning intentional energy, meaning let's take the stuff that's running beneath the surface, let's bring it to the surface and figure out what's going on. The documentary opened up with married couples on air being asked a question. And the question is, what percentage do you think that you do of the household work? And the males are sitting there going, yeah, I probably do about 70%.
Like 70%.
And,
like full-blown believing it, y'all. Like full-blown
And the females are like, what?
And then they die laughing. Each one of them just die laughing. It's so comical. It's great.
And so delusion is not uncommon in this area. So for the people listening or watching, number one, let's figure out, what are you the DRI for? Are you the directly responsible individual for the cars, or for the maintenance of the home, or for the dishes, or for the laundry, whatever it is? And let's bring it up. And Emilia and I, we did a divide and conquer of, okay, here's what I'm going to be responsible for, here's what she's going to be responsible for, so that we can have the most efficient and effective household possible.
Yes. So one of the things that you've likely heard us talk about in the Conscious Couples podcast is about the dishes. That is something we actually had an RTC call that it was hilarious and also like a little rough, where someone had said like the amount of times I've had to talk about the dishes in therapy or in coaching is like ridiculous. And the partner said like, we should make a t-shirt out of that, which I thought was hilarious and also like so challenging in so many ways, because I think it really echoes. It's like the battle cry.
Imagine a t-shirt that said, I got divorced because of the dishes.
Because of the dishes, right? Like it's such a battle cry to this topic around how what actually is equal partnership. Like, and that whole question is a really thorny question because there's so much history and so much inequality that has existed formerly in the household and the division of quote unquote labor, right? Labor of children, labor of organization of the household, labor of financially, right?
So what are some examples of invisible work that you see that women tend to take on that men have, statistically, not all men, but like a lot of men have no idea about?
What I've observed and what I've spoken with clients very often is women have had to develop this gift. Now, I can say, studying evolutionary science, this is women are more prone to be able to develop this skill faster, but that doesn't mean that men can't, which is scanning the environment and knowing when things are off and doing so, picking up on the anomaly very quickly. So for example, if there's, the shoes aren't in order and a shoe might be in the hallway and you can anticipate that a child is running around and going to trip on it, the female is usually the person that's doing that invisible cognitive calculations to make sure, like, at what point can she put the dishes down? Can she take the dogs out? Can she move the shoe out of the way before the kids actually, if they're running in circles, can actually be free of that tripping and that fall and that potential hazard? Because who's going to be the person that the kids are going to cry out most for? It's likely going to be mom because of the secure attachment. So with that evolutionary skill, that function that women are so predisposed to having already, then you put on hundreds of thousands of years of that being expected and being invisible cognitive function or cognitive labor that's never really talked about and not really ever discussed, because it's difficult to explain to your partner, hey, I'm actually calculating like 80 different things just to make sure that our kids don't fall and trip and smash their heads into the wall. So let's unlayer that. You usually don't have the time, right? And that's what a lot of couples actually come around to when they start to pick apart all the different invisible elements of really it's calculations that women are going through.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to jump on here and talk about the Conscious Couple podcast that I've been listening to for a while now. And I absolutely love, whether you're single, in a relationship or not, this is the podcast for you. I mean, think about it. If you're not in a relationship, look at it like building a house. If you were going to build a house, wouldn't you get the instructions, figure it out, look it over, start practicing some of the little things so that once you start doing it, it's going to be the best house that you ever built? Or if you're in the house already and there's issues that are going on with it, aren't you going to try and fix them? Or think about it while you're building the house and the base layer, there's some issues there. Don't you want to correct those and fix them before you work on the rest of it? Have a great day, guys. Awesome podcast.
And so you have that skill of quote unquote seeing into the future or forecasting. If X, then Y. If X, then Z, right? Whatever that is. Another example could be, well, okay, the dishwasher it has a 40-minute cycle. The laundry has a 60-minute cycle. How can I make sure that the kids get dropped off? They go to music lessons. They're still moving their grays around. Our animals are being taken out. They're getting fed properly. Like the nutrients in our smoothies are exactly what the macros and micros need. Honoring dietary restrictions, right? Water, like all these different things. That's the cognitive labor that's going in as invisible work. So why I think it's so interesting and funny and it's comical, but ultimately it has a really soft underbelly that's so quick to trigger women in particular and men when it comes to the financial component too, is because there's really not been a great system formerly to have justice in this arena and have equality.
The only thing that I can relate this to that I think will be relatable for some people is a lot of people who are not entrepreneurs, who don't own businesses, they look from the outside and they see that must be so nice to make your own schedule.
Oh, yeah.
And she playfully in the documentary said, yeah, so I was working in corporate for JP Morgan, and this is the author of the book and the main writer of the documentary. And she's being interviewed, and she said, and I had to pump breast milk in the hallway of JP Morgan, and I eventually realized
like stairs,
in the stairwell. Yeah, exactly, in the stairwell. And it was so embarrassing because it was so loud.
It sounded
and
like
I just
was
eventually
having sex with someone.
Yeah, exactly. And she was pretty funny with that. And ultimately, she said, I think I told myself a story, and I don't know why I said this because this is so not the truth. that I figured I'd be better off if I start my own business and I'd have more time on my hands, which she said is actually comical. And for anyone who's been an entrepreneur for a long time, that's just hilarious.
Business owner, you like triple, double, quadruple the time that you invest. Like it never stops. You don't sign off.
Yeah,
from
there
work
is
anymore.
no time card. There is no end time.
No.
There is no I'm done with work.
Nope.
And you want to talk about the cognitive load that owning a business. Like you and I are going away this weekend.
Oh yeah,
to the lake.
We've had to prepare for that.
Yeah, so sweetheart, we're going away this weekend to the lake, and we have to prepare before. The entire time we will be on in terms of thinking about our teams, thinking about our businesses, thinking about our podcasts.
Clients.
One time we were in Newport, and my team member messaged us and said, hey, this audio quality of this episode that you recorded, it's not launchable. We're screwed. And this is Sunday, and the launch date is Monday morning. And so the point that I'm making with this is that similar to how a non-business owner sees a business owner who makes their own schedule and looks wealthy and successful and happy and healthy, like maybe Emilia and I do right now, that's probably how it feels to a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad. Of it might look cute in the family photo that gets posted when your son or daughter graduates high school, and it looks like a cute little thing going on, but everything behind the scenes that made all that possible, that invisible work, is unbelievably challenging, difficult, and unseen. And so let's wrap this up and let's give the listeners a couple tangible takeaways, my love.
Yeah. So number one, recognize that equality is different for every single person. Everyone has a subjective definition when you ask, what does equality look like? So I would say for anyone that's listening to this episode, start to define that, because not defining that increases the probability that you're going to build resentment and contempt for your partner due to the amount of invisible labor you're doing for the we. Number two, I would say that the element of when you expect that unpacking what equality means to you in a partnership. We had an RTC session where one of the biggest values in that relationship was equality. And when you ask the question, like, what does it actually look like in practical setting? What does that look like? It's going to be a hairy and thorny conversation. It's going to be a triggering conversation.
And most likely, each partner might be slightly off.
They will.
Emilia and I have an example where I was under the impression I was taking the pets out more than her, and then we calculated the data. You might not have the data. We actually tracked it, and she was right. She was 60% of the time, and I thought it was the opposite. So I was the one delusional in that instance.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, each partner is telling themselves a story that's not rooted in objective truth. And so usually, and here's the thing, when you bring this up, it seems like you're trying to prove that your partner wrong.
Or trying to attack them or something.
But you're not. Like you're actually trying to uncover what is really happening, what is really going on. And that's baseline.
Yeah.
So, for example, Emilia and I have a percentage. Right now, she's doing about 65% of the household stuff. And we have a financial percentage as well. And that's how we try to get it to 50-50 on a lot of things.
Yep.
And ultimately, don't make this some transactional. Like, we're generous people. It's not like, oh, I can't believe I had to do the dishes when it was your day. Like, don't get ridiculous with this, please, because that's just going to cause more problems. Like, be a generous, wonderful person who wants to support your household and your career and your businesses.
And your relationship.
And your kids. But you can't be a martyr, and you have to understand what equality means to you.
Definitely.
Anything else you want to add?
I would say so. Number three, given the fact that this topic is going to be hairy, thorny, and triggering, I would say the third thing to that point is to really have grace for yourself in the verbal diarrhea that defining this is going to be with your partner, and have grace for your partner, because likely they've never really had the opportunity to have this type of dialogue with a partner, to where they're not going to be slain or attacked or
there's most likely going to be insecurities that come up during this. Sit down with your partner this weekend, write out a list, DRI list. So Emilia, DRI, she's going to be responsible for boom, 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 boom. Alan, DRI, he's going to be responsible for boom, 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 boom. Awesome. Now, here's the deal. Now you have to actually follow through on those. And here's the cool part. Let's say Emilia can't stand dishes. Let's say I don't mind it. Maybe I do the dishes.
Yeah.
Again, that's just a hypothetical. But think about what are the things that you don't mind and your partner hates, and think about the things you hate that your partner doesn't mind. Try to gamify this in a way that it's a win-win-win.
For example, they're like invisible work. We have literally over 100 different species of plants in our home, and I have a constant like rolling to do when I have to water them. I'm always pruning them. I'm always making sure that they have the right sunlight.
Well, one of our cats does prune them quite nicely.
They do, yes. Thank you, Tilly. And there was this time where when we had done the DRI list, I had asked Alan, like, well, do you want to do the plants? Kind of like that, like, get this off my plate.
Well, one time you went away and I watered the plants for us.
You did.
And I watered the fake ones too.
He watered the fake ones too. So there might be a learning curve. Just why I mentioned that is because you're doing this invisible work. You might have not ever had the chance to teach someone how to do that if you were to divide and conquer. So that's all good and fun. With that being said, I hope you'll join us at our next Relationship Talks event, which is going to be the 17th of October. Holy crap. How to be your true self in your relationship. We hope you join us there. One of the things that we find more often than not is partnerships. When you get into it, you're in the infatuation stage, and then all of a sudden you lose yourself. And clawing your way back to your true self is one of the hardest treks you can take in a relationship without losing the relationship and losing yourself. We're going to get into that.
Or in the honeymoon phase, you weren't your true self, and then you got in a relationship that might not be compatible for you.
Yeah.
And the more you can be your true self and amplify that in your relationship, the more fulfilled you're going to be, and the better your relationship is going to be. Also, if you need Relationship Talks coaching, if you want to do this DRI list, if you want to do the conscious love languages, if you want to do any of that work, 2-on-2 sessions, RTC, Relationship Talks coaching. Emilia and I, we do every single Saturday. We do one free one for every listener out there. So if you are a listener of this show, a Conscious Couples community member, bring your partner, or you can do a solo one. We would love to meet you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, we appreciate you for listening. Thank you for listening. And it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is alazarus88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.